DeAngelo Hall played for a decade and a half in the NFL, a multiple-time Pro Bowler. So I said a couple of minutes ago, I wanted to do it first, then bring you on to respond. This is the way sports work, is that the media, and I include myself in this, I try not to do this, DeAngelo, but sometimes I do. We fall for the shiny new toy. Mm-hmm. Instead of just saying LeBron's the MVP, that's Westbrook, it's Derrick Rose, it's James Harden. It's new, it's fun, it's fresh. We can't give MVP to LeBron and Michael Jordan every year. Mm-hmm. Got to give it to Karl Malone, got to give it to somebody else. Right now, the new thing is got to have the hot new coach, got to have Lincoln Riley, everybody's got to have Matt Nagy, and I'm like, Pete Carroll's having a great year. Seems like Mike Tomlin's in first place. Bill Belichick's having a great year. Nick Saban's almost 70. What do you make on the hot coach, the college coach coming to save Aaron Rodgers?
I mean, I don't know if Aaron Rodgers needs to be saved, but it is something to be said about innovation, about just changing the status quo. And sometimes in the NFL, that's a good thing. Sometimes it's a bad thing. I think at the end of the day, it has to be a combination of both. You have to consistently do some of the same things that Aaron's been successful doing and that's been successful in the National Football League, but at the same time it's about jumping on that wave kind of right before, kind of like with the Wildcat. So the Wildcat kind of took off for a little while. It wasn't meant to be a base offense. It was meant to be like a wrinkle in an offense. Same thing when we had RG3, kind of using that
RPO stuff.
RPO kind of read option, him reading linemen, but being able to pull it and pass, and throw the ball to Pierre Garçon that year. He had, 120 catches, right, and no one seemed to figure out how to stop it. But as we kind of got later into the year, teams started to try to figure it out.
And by the following year, they did.
Oh, absolutely. And it was something where we felt like, man, we can't just run that. We have to run certain things off of that. And so, yes, you have to have a coach who can change things up and kind of innovate the game a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's still football. You still have to try to spread guys out. You got to block them. You have to be able to run the ball.
Got to tackle well.
Yeah, you got to tackle well.
By the way, didn't you, when you were in Atlanta, did you see the Bobby Petrino thing?
I did. I was there with that.
Okay, no, explain what happened there, because that didn't work.
Now, I will say this. Over the years, I've grown to kind of reflect back on that situation in a different way than if you would have asked me that 5 years ago. And so I do think Bobby Petrino was a great coach. I think he was a really good offensive mind. Bobby Petrino's big hang-up for leaving was, I expected to work with Michael Vick. I'm not working with Michael Vick, which is understandable. At the time, he was the best athlete in the National Football League. Yeah. Coaches were salivating to get their hands on a guy like Michael Vick. And so I understood Bobby's wanting to leave because he didn't have Mike. Did I agree with it? No. But the thing that made Bobby a little different was just Bobby didn't really understand how to talk to men, to other men. Right. He was always used to being that college coach.
Dictator.
That voice, that dictator. He didn't realize, like, some of these dudes are 30-plus years old. Some of these guys have kids, wives at home, their parents themselves, like they talk to their kids the way you're talking to them.
Right.
And so that to me was the real big disconnect.
Lincoln Riley's not that way.
And that's how I feel about Coach Riley. When I see him talk and when I see him around his players, I don't feel like that's the problem he'll have. But a lot of college coaches who jump into the pro ranks who don't have that experience, that tends to be their number one hang up is, man, how can I communicate with these guys who are now my equal? Like, you can't coach as a dictator in the National Football League.
Can't do it. Even Belichick behind the scenes, they say, can be funny and glib and is much more of a player's coach than people.
I've heard that too.
Yeah. So there's a reporter here for the Green Bay Press-Gazette. That's a big newspaper there. Well, it's a small newspaper, but it's their newspaper. Pete Doherty. This is hard to do. When you're in a small town and you're covering the team, it's hard to be brutally honest because you got to go to the grocery store. There's one in town. Yeah. He comes out, and I got to give this guy, Pete Doherty, credit. He goes, actually, the Packers' job isn't terrible, but Cleveland's a better job. He said, first of all, it starts with personnel. They have an elite pass rusher, Myles Garrett. They have an elite corner, Denzel Ward. They have their quarterback they like, who looks to have a 10-year career. We have an older quarterback, and then the personnel in Cleveland's better than Green Bay. The second thing he says is they're swimming in salary cap room, and we're not.
Yeah.
And let me add this, because Aaron's making $33 million next year. That ain't getting better. It's getting worse for Green Bay.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, when I say Browns, when I say Green Bay, because they both have openings, to you, which is a better job?
I mean, you got to define better. I mean, a lot of people definition of better better for one coach. Bruce Arians, let's throw his name out.
Okay,
there.
Bruce Arians,
better
former
for
Arizona
Bruce
guy.
Arians isn't to be around a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who is an established passer, who's an MVP, who's a Super Bowl winning quarterback, who has been to the mountaintop.
And who just got tired of an old coach.
Exactly. And who's making $33 million a year or something around those lines. Better for him is
Cleveland.
Cleveland.
He can teach a young
quarterback
QB
that I can groom, teach the way that I've taught all these other quarterbacks that I've had, and a guy who's probably not going to question every single thing that I say as a coach. And I'm not saying Aaron's going to do that, but that's just a perception that you see.
What you're saying is basically one of the best candidates on the market, and I believe you to be right. Bruce Arians would be an excellent candidate. And what you're saying, for Bruce Arians, Baker and the Browns is actually a better fit. I think you're right.
And for a lot of coaches, where they are in their situations, they might not want to deal with that extra headache of what we're perceiving Aaron Rodgers to be like. Because, I almost feel bad for Aaron because, before I kind of was thinking, when Winston Moss quote came out, his tweet came out. I was kind of like, dang, Aaron, you have to, as the leader of that team, be willing to take the criticism, be willing to have the coach call you out, or be willing to be the scapegoat so all these other young dudes realize, look, this is how it's going to be done. If Aaron's getting screamed on, I sure can't mess up, or I sure have to bring my A game. And so when Winston Moss said that, I was kind of like, dang, Aaron. But then to hear Aaron come back and say, look, I've told Coach McCarthy several times, call me out. And for no one to have refuted that yet makes me think that to a certain extent, he is, he probably has done that. And maybe Coach McCarthy just didn't feel like at that particular time it was the right time to do that. But I was always a guy who, I had a DB coach, Raheem Morris, great coach. And we were really, really close. And he always told other players, look, you can't do what D. Hall does. He has money in my emotional bank account. He's proven time and time again, when it comes down to it, he's going to show up. So you can't act the same way he does.
Right.
But I also had to know at the same time, dudes are watching me. So, scream on me. If you need to cuss me out or do whatever you got to do it.
That's by the way, that's part of leadership.
You have to.
Brady said the same
thing. Those
thing.
guys know that, look, I understand that I'm a great player and I can get away with some certain things. But at the end of the day, this is the standard we all are trying to live up to. And, some days we don't feel like going 100%. Nobody does every single day. But when you see me down, somebody else has to bring that energy. And, that's the process in the league. At some point, it's not going to be the same leaders every single day. It takes the whole team to police themselves.
Finally, I like the Bears over the Rams this weekend, and you told my producer Cowherd is on something.
Yeah, he is. I said bet something. Like we say in my hood, bet something.
Is that what they said in your neighborhood?
Bet something. If you feel that strongly about what you're saying, and I obviously feel very strongly about what I'm saying, at the end of the day, bet something.
Was it in your Blazing Five?
It is.
Well, then he's
So I
betting
am
something.
betting something.
Okay. Well, what is he betting, Joy? I want to.
I don't know. That
I want to come up off of this.
Particularly, I was going. Whatever happened to that money that we were wagering earlier?
I lost it over time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you bet in your neighborhood as a kid?
A little bit.
Did you really?
Yeah. It was more like now laters and bags of chips and
Nothing wrong with that. That was your currency.
Yeah, that's all I had, man.
They're not
Products from the corner store.
Eagles, Cowboys. Who do you like?
I like the Cowboys. I do. It hurts me to say it, but I like the Cowboys. I mean, I just don't see how the Eagles can stop Zeke. I don't see how they can stop Amari Cooper. He's coming on strong. And even Dak Prescott's actually becoming a really good passer at this point. And that defense is humming, man. The way that defense shut down the New Orleans Saints, excuse me, I mean, I just don't see
it was the
Eagles
shocker of the
being
year in the
able to-
NFL.
Yeah, I just
the
don't see
shocking
the Eagles being
moment
able
of the
to do
year in the
enough.
NFL was not just the Cowboys won, how they won. Drew Brees had his worst game as a Saint.
Yeah.
That to me is like, what did I just watch? You know, it's funny, DeAngelo, the way it works. There are games over the course of a season that are like every player in the league's talking about, like the Chiefs-Rams game.
Yeah.
Every player in the league was like, you see that thing last night?
That was a good game.
I really think that was the offensive showcase. I think the Cowboys went over the Saints. It was the second game this year in the NFL. Everybody's like, they text our buddies. Dallas's defense, Leighton Vander Esch, Jalen Smith is totally. It makes me think the Cowboys are a different team.
I mean, it's the reason people love football is because you know any given Sunday anything can happen.
Yep.
I mean, because I, to a fault, would have probably bet on New Orleans.
Of
I mean, we
course.
all would have bet
The
on New
world
Orleans.
would've.
Yeah, and so I would have been sitting here holding the bag.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.